Hello and welcome to another episode of the Wanderlust Wealth Show. Today, I have a very special guest on the podcast. One of my very first Wanderlust Wealth Academy coaching students, Sayan Baker, is here. I'm so excited for you to be on the show because when I say who I created this program for, you are the exact perfect epitome of the person that I created this program for. It's wild how it happened, but welcome to the show, Sayan.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Olivia.
I'm so excited. Well, Sayan, I know it's been a journey. It's been such a freaking journey. And I think what's crazy too is when you signed up for the program, it's like you found something on Instagram, I think one of my reels, and you started commenting on it. And people comment on my reels all the time, but I could feel the frustration through your message, what you were saying, writing on the reel. And so I DM'd you. I'm like, hey, well, where are you at? All of that. We hopped on a call and you signed up right there and there. And then it was so funny too, because I'd already at this time, this was, I was doing it boot camp style. So it's just going to be an 8-week program. And then after that, you go off and do your own thing. But so I'd already closed the doors for it. And I had my people in there. We're good, whatever. But then we hopped on the call. I'm like, you're literally the perfect person for this program. So I'm just going to let you in anyway.
Well, I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh. Well, so Sayan, I guess, why don't you tell everyone here, who are you, first of all?
Sure. So I'm Sayan Baker. I am I'll give official title, but right now, at least career-wise, I'm a strategic product consultant at a construction management software company. It sounds super complex, but basically I just teach a lot of general contractors and owners and especially contractors how to do my old job as an engineer and estimator in construction using my company's software. So that's me career-wise. And then I would say outside of my job, who I am as a person is a traveler, literally love traveling everywhere all the time. And then also I'm a competitive bowler. So I have been bowling since I was 5 years old. So it's been, my main sport my entire life. And also I just love fitness. Currently in love with Pilates. Before it was CrossFit. Before that, it was Taekwondo. I just kind of try out new things all the time. And then, I just love exploring and just doing cool new things in the city, which I'm from Chicago. So, love just exploring Chicago. And I grew up here, but there's always new things to do every month.
Completely. I love that. And it's so interesting because I even think about all of the women in the program and everyone's kind of multi-passionate in their own way. And I'm always multi-passionate. And it's so interesting because literally everyone's into fitness, likes to travel.
That's so cute.
I love that so much. So, Sayan, you actually went to school for engineering, right? So to walk me, because there's a lot of people in general who come to me, right, where they're either engineers or maybe doctors or lawyers or something, and they were kind of going through the motions and doing the thing and realizing that, wait a minute, I don't know if this is 100% the route that I want to take. Let me start looking at other options, which is when they start looking at real estate, right? So can you kind of walk me through your, how did you even start to discover real estate, starting from when you were studying engineering?
Yeah. So I actually started, looking into real estate when I was actually an engineering student. So my senior year of college, which I went to school for civil engineering, my professor for my engineering wealth management class had brought in some different speakers that were investors and also former engineers or they were currently engineers, but they were also just wanted to talk to us about, just how to manage our money when we start collecting that paycheck. Because as my professor put it, we had pretty much two different types of engineers most of the time. Usually you had engineers who kind of just came from nothing and like really never had that like exposure to like the financial literacy. And so this is like their first time like managing like big amounts of money. And so you have that one group, and then you have the other group of students who were students that were just graduating to basically take on their favorite business. And they not only know how to balance their own finances, but also run the finances for the company as well. And so with those two different groups, he wanted to basically make sure that we were all like set up to be able to be like financially ready to take on the world.
I love that. Honestly, I wish I had a class like that, because I did not and had no idea what I was doing. And it's so funny because I was even talking to Anita about this. And I would love to go, and even if it's speaking at companies or businesses or at schools, talking to young, like especially young female engineers, being like, girlies, buy you some real estate. Like, don't go get the high rise. I know how tempting it is.
And that's why I love taking that class, because that professor really like walked us through everything, like, you know, doing our own taxes so that we could at least understand how to do it, even if we like need someone else to do it. And then when it came to real estate, he was like, honestly, the smartest investment for you all will be to buy property, house hack it, you know, rent out the other portion of the property, or if you buy a single family, just rent out the other rooms to like friends or something, or coworkers, so that you can reduce your cost of living or even live for free or cash flow on it. And basically not set yourself up by putting yourself into like this kind of like hamster wheel of just being a renter and like just kind of forcing yourself to like rent for life almost in a way. He was like, it would be better for you to kind of already like, you know, buy that first asset and get into real estate, and then also like, you know, live for free. And basically after that lecture, I was like, so that's what I'm going to do. And then I graduated in COVID. So
Yeah.
it definitely like, you know, set my plans back a little bit, but I feel like because of graduating in like 2020, it also helped a little bit because like, you know, with the like government stipends, I was able to pay off like a little bit in loans that I had, and was able to like buy a car the next year, and kind of just like set myself up for like, what I needed in life at that time. So well, this might be jumping a little bit into like one of your future questions, but I started looking into getting into like a real estate investing group the next year after I graduated, just so that I can have some guidance to get me in the door and like learn more about like real estate investing, and hopefully get that first property. Yeah.
Totally. And yeah, so tell me a little bit about this real estate investing group, because when you came to me, you were like, yeah, I was in a group before. And I was like, okay, well, how long has it been? And like, why don't we have a property yet? Like, not in like a condescending way, but more just like, what's stopping you, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. So that group was a Chicago-based group of real estate investors. I would say most of the investors in the group were probably like 40 plus, all had like kids and families, and, you know, they had a spouse with additional income. So like a lot of people didn't really like match me in the demographic of the group. There were some people that were younger, but also like they kind of came from money. So they had money set up to be able to like dive deep into just like scaling their like real estate portfolio. And for me, I was still kind of like stuck on, I just want to start with house hacking. And then from there, you know, look into other types of real estate investing. And they didn't really have too many options for people that have been going through that specific path. And so it was kind of hard to get the guidance that I needed. And although I learned quite a bit inside of that program, just about like real estate investing and just real estate in general, and like, you know, the terminology and like what you're looking for in deals, it just never ended up like aligning the way that I saw it aligning for me. And so because of that, like after I joined that in 2021, probably by like the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, I kind of had just given up on it.
Yeah.
I had like put in offers on properties. I didn't really know what I was doing.
No, but honestly, still good though that you went through that, right? Because I think two, you still had it on your mind. And sometimes like we have these goals and these dreams and it might not make sense for that exact season for whatever reason. But if you keep coming back to that dream and that goal, right, then it's like almost the universe telling you like, go for it, you know?
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's why I just never let it go. I kind of just like took a break for a couple of years and just started just traveling. And I was like, I'll just spend my money just traveling.
Yeah.
But I still kind of have real estate in the background. So I was like, I'll still continue to save up for a property, but I just won't be saving as aggressively anymore. And like, I'll just kind of just enjoy my time like in my 20s and, you know, just travel.
Okay, y'all, do I have something exciting for you? Now, I just came out with a brand new free training on exactly how you can get started investing in real estate within the next 3 months. Because if you're someone who wants more freedom in your life, the ability to travel the world and do the things that you actually want to do in life, you're going to want to listen up. Trust me. Now, this training is freaking awesome. I literally go in and spill the tea on the number one strategy that is working right now, like literally today in today's market. And I go over how to look at deals and make sure that they actually cash flow and how to set your properties up so that you can run them from anywhere in the world. Like I literally have managed my properties from over 6 different time zones. So if you are stuck in analysis paralysis, you don't know where to start when it comes to real estate investing, but you know that it's something that you want to do in the future, this training is going to be for you. So to check it out, click the link in the show notes or DM me the word hack, like HACK on Instagram, and I will send you the link. Now let's dive back into the show. Totally. Well, and it's so funny you say that because I even think about this when I was done with college. This was when I was 21 years old. At first, I was like, oh my gosh, amazing. I'm going to buy a townhouse and I'm going to rent it out to friends. And this is at 21. I already had the idea in my mind.
Yeah.
But then I was like, I don't really know if I'm ready for the real world. So I'm going to go to grad school and I'm going to take the next 6 months off. And I'm just going to spend the next couple of years traveling to 50 countries. You know? And I think that's totally okay and totally normal. Like I look back to those years and I don't regret any of it. Yes, I could have bought a property a little bit earlier, but everything happens on your own timeline, right?
Yes.
And so I always think back to those, like, I tell people at the time, right? Like I got myself into $25,000 worth of credit card debt, but I wouldn't change that for the world because I had the best experiences, the best time. And those are memories that are going to take me forever,
Yep, I definitely agree with that for sure. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So you end up kind of giving up on the idea of real estate investing, but always had it at the back of your mind. So what happened and how did you end up joining? I know we kind of already touched on this, but how did you why did you end up joining WWA and how did it kind of happen?
Yeah. So let's see, 2020. Well, actually, no, end of 2023. That's when I joined.
Yes.
Yeah. So end of 2023, I kind of was just just like the transition phase in life at that time. And so I was like, you know what, I'm getting out of a bad relationship and I'm ready to kind of get back on my feet and start attacking my goals. And I was like, the first goal that I'm going to go for is real estate. The second goal I'm going to go for is going to business school. Yeah. Maybe down the line. But for now, though, at least, end of 2023, those were my 2 goals. And so I kind of was tackling both at the same time. And while looking into real estate again, I guess, Instagram and their algorithm, it just ended up pushing your reel in front of me. And I've seen a lot of social media influencers that, have programs and everything. And usually I go to one of their free master classes. And then towards the end, they're super pitchy. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. But then I do look at this every session. I'm like, no, this is not a good fit for me. Mm-hmm. And especially after going through a program where I was I kind of just went into it blindly because they were all pushing me into it. And they were like, oh, you'll figure it out when you're in here. And I'm like, cool, I can do that then. And then I realized that I put basically the down payment that I could have put on a house to get into that program. And I ended up not actually finding a lot of value for myself for my specific path. That's why I started to be a little bit more cautious with looking into new programs. But when I saw your reel, I was like, you know what? Why not?
I think too, like, because even as you were saying, your previous program, right, had a bunch of folks who were over 40. Like, you didn't really see yourself in them, and they were all married. And it's like, okay, well, you're not a solo single girl in her 20s buying properties, right? And so the priorities are different. And I always tell people this whenever they are signed, because I sign up for coaches as well. But I get so clear on, number one, does this feel right? And number one is, do I see myself being in her position or his position or whatever? Like, is there something about the way she's actually like presenting herself and living her life and stuff that I actually want that for myself? Right.
Yep. I definitely agree. And with you, it was like, okay, perfect. Like, it seems like this is pretty aligned. And especially like when you were like messaging me back and then like we hopped on a call like that same day. And then like we were running through it and I was like, you know what? I don't know, something seems right about this. So I usually go ahead and just sign up, and I just went ahead and just paid for it. And I was like, let's go.
I know. I was like, wait, that was so easy.
Honestly, it's super easy after you've already seen what isn't a good fit for you. Like, then it's like you already know at that point, like, okay, what am I really looking for at this point? And like, what is going to be like that great fit for me and like what I need right now? And your program was like perfect.
Completely. And I find that it's the same too. Is like I hop on discovery calls more just for like knowledge, just to see how other people are doing things. But like you can tell, you can feel it in your body if something feels right and if it feels wrong, right? Like, and I know whenever I'm signing up for a coaching program, there's no like real anxiety around it because I know that it's right for me and it's just aligned, you know?
Very true. And I realized that too. So like the coaching programs that I sign up for, where I'm like, still a little anxious, or like you really haven't answered all of my questions, but like you're telling me that I need to pay, and then you answer all of my questions. Those I hesitate a little bit on.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why I like jumped into yours so quickly and easily was because you were very transparent with like answering my questions. And that transparency was like key to me. I'm like, okay, I know that like based on the knowledge that I've already gained and like your knowledge that you've shared with me so far, this is the perfect match.
I love it. I love it. Well, so I think here's the one of the other best parts of when you joined is like, because you were kind of like, you had a little bit of credit card debt, right? When you joined, and it's like the day after the first group session, you're like, okay, so I paid off all my debt. I'm like, girl, what is happening? Like you were just like in it, ready to go.
Yep. Yes, that is so true. And I feel like the reason why it was so easy for me to be able to do that was because, like I said, even though I wasn't like prioritizing real estate at the time, like I still was saving up like a little bit of money over time. And so with that, I had a little nest egg that I could use to pay off my credit card debt. I just chose not to because I was like, oh, like if I find a property, I need to like have the money ready for the down payment like now. But jumping into the program, I was like, you know what, looking at the whole like path of the journey, I'm going to basically just go ahead and wipe out the debt now so I don't have to continue to pay, interest on it or anything. And then just accumulate my savings from there and also manage my spending too from there. And so with that, like the combination of all three, basically, I was able to not only pay off all my debt, stay debt free while looking for a property, and then also accumulate the savings back up again. So by the time that I started the NACA process, like I already kind of had shown them like, okay, cool. Like, yes, she can save the amount of money that she needs to save based on the program requirements. And then also that like my finances were all together, and it just made it like very smooth and very easy, especially to get through like the initial stages with NACA. Cause I was able to prove to them up front that like, I'm good with my finances and that they didn't need to spend like the extra like 6 months, working with me to like see if I could actually like be ready to start making a mortgage payment.
Completely. And that's why, like, even in WWA, such a foundational part of it is finances, right? Because, like, I always tell people, if your finances are not good, you cannot buy a house. Like, you're going to put yourself in a hole real quick. And I think, especially with social media, there's all the, like, no money down and creative financing, which, don't get me wrong, a lot of these strategies are so incredible. And we're going to talk about a really cool no money down strategy here today. But it's got like the risk mitigated simply because you're going through a program where they double check to make sure that you actually know what you're doing with your finances.
Exactly. And that's cute.
I love it. I love it. Okay. So now tell me, and I know we've been throwing around NACA. Some people might not know what NACA is. Can you kind of explain that and how you literally purchased a property for free?
Yeah. So NACA is a program that partners with Bank of America as like the official lender on the back end. And basically, through the program, you are partnered up with a counselor, and that counselor helps you throughout the entire process. And so they'll walk you through the initial stages of looking at your finances, and they'll just make sure that, you're financially ready to take on a mortgage and, living expenses when it comes to owning a home. And then from there, after you go through like the initial stages and you put together your plan of like all the documentation that you need to get in, and if you need to work on certain like financial habits, for example, like saving for a few months so that you can prove that you're ready to start paying a mortgage. Then once you basically submitted all of the information that they requested, and you're good to go financially, then they will step you through like the NACA qualified stage, which basically just kind of lets you go out and go find your property. And then from there, there's just like more to it that we can kind of get into. But the whole process is, again, guided through like your NACA counselor. So it's really helpful because you have someone to answer your questions the entire way. And then in addition to that, like they also have like in-house agents too. So like you don't have to go find your own realtor. You can use one of their in-house agents, which is very helpful because they've done the NACA process on like hundreds of properties. And it just becomes a lot easier when you're using someone that has gone through that process and understands like the extra paperwork that goes into NACA. And then there's also benefits to going through NACA as a buyer as well, because as Olivia mentioned, there's a chance for you to potentially, not come out of pocket at all or net by the end of the time or the end of the transaction, as well as no closing costs, no down payment required. You have interest rate buy downs, and then also the interest rate that you start off with is always going to be lower than the market interest rate, as long as you're under the income threshold. And even if you're over the income threshold, the interest rate's still pretty good. So honestly, it's just a great program all around, especially because one thing that they also like to talk about is that like if you are, for example, over the income threshold for that year, even if your interest rate is higher, which is it's just going to be 1% higher than the NACA member rate, then in addition to that, you're also still getting the benefit of no down payment requirement and no closing costs and no PMI. So those three alone, it saves you a lot of money.
Okay, yeah. So everyone, people are probably hearing this. They're like, what? How is this too good to be true? So what are, I guess, some of the drawbacks from using NACA?
Yeah, it's a slower process. I would say that when you have, again, like the initial process of like, being financially ready, that part can take a while if you aren't ready. But also at the same time, that's kind of not a drawback because it's a good thing that someone is telling you that you're not financially ready to take on a mortgage at that time, because it helps protect you.
Totally. And it's so interesting because some people get mad at me because they're like, oh, I couldn't get through the NACA process. It's like, yeah, that's because you're not ready. And you need to like put in the work to show that you're financially ready. And it's like, this is a blessing.
Exactly. It really is. Honestly, it's like true protection for you, really. I would say the only drawback really is just like the timeline of things and just like paperwork. But the same thing could be said for like FHA 203K loan. Like there's a lot of paperwork with that too. So
yeah. But it's like you're getting a free house with lower than market interest rates, like no PMI. And yeah, okay, it's going to take you a little bit longer, but you're also getting a free like multi-$100,000 property.
Yep. Exactly. Which is the beautiful thing to me. So that's why I was like, you know what? I'm willing to wait. Like it's fine. Like tomorrow. I mean, if I could like save money, especially on the front end, because like for me, that's another thing. Like being in Chicago, this is a very hard market to get into, especially right now. And one thing that like I think I kind of found myself getting into was like the mindset of like, dang, I really might not be able to get a home until like I'm like 30 something because like I'm just gonna keep trying to save up and I'm never actually going to like match up with inflation. And so NACA kind of helped me like jump over that like hoop and be able to get myself in the door without having to have all the closing costs and the down payment again and then the PMI. So which also PMI is the private mortgage insurance. There we go.
Yeah. And so for anyone who doesn't know, PMI is like basically whenever you put less than 20% down on a property, you have to pay an extra mortgage insurance premium, whatever. But usually that's like a few extra $100 maybe. And so at the end of the day, I always tell people run your numbers. If the numbers make sense, then who cares about PMI?
Very true.
Okay, awesome. Well, yeah. So tell me a little bit more about your property, right? Because you actually got under contract on 2 different properties. So tell me a little bit more about that process and how you had to get creative in a market like Chicago, where, you're not looking at $200,000 homes. You're looking in a higher price point.
Exactly. So definitely have to get creative for sure. I ideally wanted to be in like the $250,000 home, amount so that I could definitely like guarantee that I would cash flow. But that is really hard to do unless you want to rehab a property in Chicago. And there are
Which you can do.
You definitely can do it.
Yeah, especially and it's like I feel like that's something that stops a lot of people because they're like, oh man, I can only do this if I renovate a property. I guess I can't do it, right? So it's like, okay, well then how can we get strategic about it so we can kind of remove some of those barriers? And that's exactly what you did.
Exactly. So yes. So for me, I just knew right now I just wanted, turnkey, just want to move in and that's it. And so because of that, I got creative with my strategy. And I started looking at multifamilies that were either structured interestingly or because of the rate in the area and the taxes that the numbers just worked out well so that I can actually afford a higher purchase price. And so the first property that I got under contract on was originally listed at, I believe, like 500,000 or something like that. And it was a 3-unit. And I ended up getting it under contract for like 450. And then also I got some additional like closing costs on, or the seller credit on it so that I can use that to buy down the interest rate. And the only reason why I backed out of that property was because it just didn't sit right with me that there were some structural concerns. And then also there was the logistic concern about the 3rd unit because of the ceiling height and how like the NACA requirements were. I think the same thing would have been if it were an FHA property as well. The ceiling height was just a little bit too low for a legal unit. And so because of that, I was just like, I'm just going to just back out of the deal. And also the owner was a little shady. So there was some stuff that he was hiding, but
oh my gosh.
So yeah, it just didn't feel like a good purchase. So I backed out of that contract and then I continued to look at more properties. And then about maybe a month or so later, that's when I found this property that I'm in. And basically the numbers for this, the original asking price was $675. by the time that I looked at it again, so I originally saw it at the beginning of summer in like June. By the time I saw it again in August, I saw that they had an open house coming up and that they had dropped the price to 650. And so I was like, oh, well,
They're trying to sell.
yeah. So I was like, they're trying to sell, I'm trying to buy, like we can make something work. And
I know. I think I remember you saying you being like, well, I don't know if I should even go look at this because it's higher price point, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, just go ask, put an offer in. You never know.
Very true. Which I feel like my hesitation mainly came from my realtor more so than myself, because he was hesitant because when he ran the numbers, he was like, oh, it doesn't make sense. It's not going to work. And I was like, well, it will work if I get them down to this price. And they also give me this amount of credits so I can buy down the interest rate and then it'll all work out. And he was like, no, they're not going to do that. Like, why would they do that? And I was like, I don't know why they would, but it doesn't hurt to try. So after I talked to you about it, then I was like, let's just do it. I didn't even invite my realtor. We literally had just came from a bunch of like suburban properties that morning, and they all were just horror properties, every single one of them. And so after that, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go check out this open house, just do it by myself, and like see what happens. And I went in and actually met one of the owners. She was the one that was like hosting it at the time, and yeah, she like took me around the house and everything. And then we talked at the end, and she was like, what do you think? And I was like, I love it. Like, I love the area. It's exactly where I want to be. It's just that the price is a little high. Yes. And so she was like, well, what were you thinking? And I was like, the last time I read my numbers, I think it was like $100,000 lower than what you were. Like, that was the beginning of summer. Things have changed. The interest rates have dropped. So like, let me rerun the numbers and then I'll send in the offer. And she was like, okay, cool. Like, just send in the offer. We'll take a look at it. And then let you know. And so from there, I remember during one of our WWA calls, I had asked about like how to strategically like offer such a low price. And you had mentioned the letter that you sent in for your first property. So I used that as my template on Canva and like, created the nice letter to send to them with my offer. And of course, I turned down the first one.
Of course. But you're like creating that connection, right? Where they start to like know you and understand you. Because at the end of the day, real estate really is a people game more than anything else.
Exactly. And I definitely like credit, I think, the success of this to that letter, because I feel like without them really getting a chance to truly get to know who I am and like, what my journey has been and like where I'm at this stage in life and like what my goals are, they probably would have just looked at the offer and just been like, no. And then
100%, 100%. And then now they see you, they're like, this like young woman who's really trying to like do something for herself and be entrepreneurial. And they're like, I know if I'd seen that letter, I'd be like, I want to give it to this girl.
Yep. And so because of that, they were open to at least negotiating with me. And so we negotiated for, I think, a little over a week. And then finally we agreed on the seller concessions and the purchase price, and we were good to go. And then it took them another week to actually sign the contract. And then after the contract was finally signed, then we kind of entered into my long journey of being under contract for 4 months,
that was crazy.
That just kind of was just by chance. Like, there were a lot of things that just kind of kept delaying the process. And sometimes it would be on the seller side, sometimes it would be on my side. And then at the end, it delayed it like another 6 to 7 weeks, but that was kind of out of both of our hands. It was really on the title company that were doing their job. But
it's also like the connection that you guys had made, I think also, because at any point they could have pulled out at the end of the day. They could have just been like, but the thing that people don't also realize is like, as the buyer, honestly, you still kind of have the upper hand. Like, because you have the option to be like, no, I don't want it. Because then they have to go back put the property back on the market. Now it's like been on the market for multiple months. No one's bought it. They fell out of contract. Everyone's questioning, right? So it's like, and that's why I remember talking to you and you're like getting really nervous. I'm like, girl, like, what are they going to do? Put it back on the market and be under contract for another 3 months?
Yeah, very true. That is so true. And I would say, like, I definitely agree that we kind of felt like the relationship over this like long time too. Because like even now, like I will like text the seller. I'm like, hey, like there's just like one thing that's going on in the property. And he's like, oh yeah, like this is how you fix that. And I'm like, okay, cool, thank you. Like, he's just kind of like my like sounding board now to kind of like help me out with just things around the house, especially since like it's my first property. And he's been rehabbing properties for like over 20 years.
Well, and now you have this connection too, right? Where you have this other real estate investor, and who knows, he may have projects in the, because everyone, I think, like, you know, you hear the stories of people who've grown their portfolio and stuff like that, but most of it is because they created some sort of a relationship with someone in the industry, and that was like they're in, you know?
Exactly. Yes, very true. So yeah, so it's been great. Living in the property, just enjoying the neighborhood. Can't wait for the summer. It's going to be very fun.
I love it. And then can you just like, before we finish up here, can you just explain to people like, what was the strategy that you used for this house? I know it's like a 2-family, but you're kind of like double house hacking it, and you know, how you looked at kind of different methods so that you would feel okay with purchasing this.
Yeah. So the engineering. I love spreadsheets.
Yeah, and we're giving the condensed version here. If you want the long version, just join WWA. You can get the whole version
Right.
in there.
Exactly. Each version is that I basically manipulated the calculator that you get with WWA to customize it to kind of fit like the calculations that I was looking for. And to keep it short, basically with the seller concessions to buy down the interest rate to a 4.5% rate. And then I negotiated the offer price down from $675 to $634. And then I'm double house hacking by renting a room in my unit to my cousin, which we've grown up together. So I would say like we can kind of bypass it like standard, you know, investing advice to not rent to family since we literally have always lived together. So renting out a room to her. And then I'm going to be renting the bottom unit as a midterm rental in the winter and then short-term rental in the summer. And with that, it's definitely going to cut my expenses, which is nice.
I love it. I love it. Well, what has been the most surprising thing about being in the program?
The most surprising thing is, I guess, kind of the journey that I ended up taking, because I heard about NACA for years before like joining the program. And then like while we were in the program, since you have mentioned it in your course, I was like, you know what, let me just go ahead and look into this, because I'm looking into every option right now. And just kind of just going to that first session, which I believe actually you were the one that told me to just go ahead and just go, like just figure it out. And so I went to the first session, and then from there, like sitting in the NACA session and really like hearing information from the group themselves, I was like, wow, like why are more people not?
Yeah, like why am I not? I know, and I'm like pissed because I didn't even know about NACA when I got started. So I'm like, guys, go NACA.
Exactly, yeah. And I'm like, literally, my mom was like, dang, like I wish we would have known about NACA. Like,
Yeah.
we would have bought a house with NACA. So that was probably like the most surprising thing, and like just going through like that full journey with NACA, as well as buying a like almost $750,000 property, especially in an area that is like quickly appreciating in Chicago, because they're like heavily investing in it right now. And it's an area that was actually number one on my list that I thought I would never be able to afford to get into. All of that together is just like mind blowing to me. And like the fact that I was able to do it and basically come out of pocket like $0. Actually, well, not even basically. I got all of my money back at the closing table. And so because of that, I bought this property for free. Like I really never thought that was possible. Like I saw so many people talking about it on Instagram and I was like, well, how can I do this? Like it's not feasible for me. And it ended up working out perfectly. So,
that makes me so happy. And I literally seeing your entire journey just in the whole program has been incredible. And I'm so proud of you for staying with it and taking action every step of the way, even when random things pop up and you're like, oh no, but that's life. And I think part of it is really just managing our emotions more than anything else, because it's so easy to make emotional decisions that aren't actually serving us.
That is so true. Which definitely the managing the emotions portion is key. Now, there will be weeks where I would get on a call with you, and I'm just like, I'm freaked out right now. You're not going according to the plan right now. You'd be like, okay, let's take a step back. And literally also reading Everything is Figure Outable.
Yes, thank you. Best book out there.
So now I feel like every little task that comes up, I may freak out for 30 minutes, and then after that I'm like, okay, but how can I solve this? And then I just end up figuring out and just moving on to the next step.
I love it. Well, Sayan, for anyone who's on the fence of joining WWA, what would you say to them?
Do it. I would say if you know that you're ready to buy that first property, you're ready to go ahead and just get in there and, receive the guidance that you need in order to be able to do so, join WWA. It's so worth it. Honestly, best money ever spent, honestly.
That makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad. Well, Sayan, it has been a pleasure to see your entire journey. I'm so excited to have you at the retreat as well, so I get to finally meet you in person. But I'm literally so proud of you. You've been just the whole transformation, the confidence that I see now, and I know you're gonna go forward and impact many ahead of you too. So I'm just so excited for you. And it's not over, right? Now we got to get the place rented, and now we're going to start running a short-term rental. So there's still more work to do, but you're getting closer and closer to that vision for yourself, which is just a beautiful thing to watch.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well, if anyone ever wanted to reach out to you, I know you also provide some services on occasion. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah. So you can reach out to me on Instagram at Sayan Baker, CYAN Baker. And if you ever are looking for social media services, let me know. But if not, if you just want to ask questions about real estate or NACA or investing in Chicago, definitely reach out to me and I'll answer your questions.
Amazing. Thank you, Sayan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Wanderlust Wealth Show. Now, don't forget to follow the podcast, or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you love this episode, it would literally mean the world to me if you shared this with a friend or a family member, or literally anyone off of the street. Right now, go ahead, share it so you don't forget, or post it on social media and make sure to tag me. I love seeing what you're listening in on and what you resonated with, and I'm just so freaking thankful for you. I'm so freaking excited for you. I love you, and don't forget, life really doesn't have to be hard.